The Israeli government is an oppressive, racist government, just like the American government, and that's why we support them.
Keep it 100, I be feeling like Campbell soup over white rice, baked chicken with the skin on, yeah, Lowry's with black pepper, I'm fully seasoned with laughter.
On Sunday, Israel formed a new government coalition, which is headed by a far-right nationalist whose name is Naftali Bennett, which ended Benjamin Netanyahu's 12-year run as Israel's prime minister. His first action on Monday was to approve a, quote, proactive march by the Israeli far-right nationalists and pro-settler group through occupied East Jerusalem. So Tuesday, which at this point was yesterday, hundreds of Palestinians in Gaza protested against the March of the Flags, which marks the anniversary of Israel's 1967 occupation of East Jerusalem. There's a lot of tension because Israel is planning to illegally evict Palestinian families from the neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah. Sorry if I butchered that name. In advance of the march, Israeli police kicked Palestinians out from outside of Old City's Damascus Gate, where 17 Palestinians were arrested and 33 were wounded by the Israeli police. Hundreds of Jewish ultra-nationalists were caught chanting "Death to Arabs" and "May your village burn" in Hebrew. So I guess if the nationalists are terrible, the ultra-nationalists are significantly more terrible. So I want to make this clear. It's not just the Israeli government that's absolutely terrible and atrocious. It's also the vast majority of the people. Many of the people are terrible and support this government, and are just bigoted overall towards the Palestinians. They're an oppressive force in their country. They support the oppression and suppression of the Palestinians. Being completely real. But I'm going to provide some evidence of that. So in retaliation to this, Hamas fired incendiary balloons from Gaza into Israel. And then Israel bombed Gaza again. So I want to make this clear. Israel is the aggressor here. Not Palestine, not Palestinians. Israel is the aggressor. There's a new government and they're doing the exact same thing. So people that just want to blame Netanyahu, is a new government. This time it's not Netanyahu's fault. Now, Netanyahu is absolutely terrible and he has done these things in the past. But right now it's a new government and they're still doing the exact same thing. So who's to blame this time? Is it just the Israeli government? Or is it also the people that are very bigoted towards Palestinians? So that's what happened. Israel is planning to evict Palestinians from their home. They're attacking innocent protesters. And then Hamas decided to fire incendiary balloons into Israel. And Israel retaliated by bombing them. That's like if someone throws a rock at you, you shoot them. Not even a rock. That's like if someone throws a pebble at you, you shoot them. And the way the mainstream media is covering this is, of course, absolutely atrocious. At best, they're telling you half truths, but in reality, they're completely lying to you by omission. So I want you to take a look at this New York Times article. The headline reads, "Israeli aircraft bomb Gaza just days into new government." After a day of rising tensions, which saw a far-right march in Jerusalem and incendiary balloons launched from Gaza, Israel's new coalition government ordered airstrikes against Hamas. So I'm just going to read a little bit of this to you. I'll read the first paragraph. The Israeli military said early Wednesday that it had conducted airstrikes in the Gaza Strip after officials said that the militant group Hamas had sent incendiary balloons into southern Israel from Gaza. in the first eruption of hostilities since an 11-day air war between Israel and Hamas ended last month. So I'm going to stop there. So the first thing I want to comment on is they're calling this an air war. That's complete nonsense. It's not an air war. Israel is committing a genocide against Palestinians. Aided by the US. Aided and funded by the US. That's what's going on. It's not an air war. I'm going to show you some figures of the death toll of the Israelis versus Palestinians in over the last many years. So I want you to take a look at this chart. So each and every time, it's been Israel who has been the aggressors and Palestinians defending themselves. And they're calling this an air war. It's not an air war, it's complete BS. The next thing I want to comment on is this article doesn't at all mention that Israel is planning to evict Palestinians from their neighborhood. This article does not at all mention the police brutality experienced by the Palestinians from the Israeli police. This article doesn't mention that. What they try to make it seem is like there were marches by the far right in Israel. Palestine then, Hamas then launched incendiary balloons into Israel, and Israel is defending themselves, retaliating against Hamas. That's the way they try to make it seem. Complete nonsense. Only giving you half of the story. And that's why the media is so garbage. They always try to make it seem like Palestine is provoking Israel, rather than the reality that Israel is provoking Palestine, and Palestinians are defending themselves, and Israel is using that as justification to have an apartheid state and blow to pieces and occupy their lands. That's what's happening. No matter what the Palestinians do, there's a violent response by the Israeli government. That's kind of the same thing like what happens to Black Lives Matter in America. Whether black people peacefully protest or they riot, there's a violent response from the government. And the people look down on them. 95% of water in Gaza is undrinkable because of the Israeli government. Also kind of similar to what's going on in America. The Israeli government has Palestinians on a calorie count. Now, to my knowledge, that doesn't happen in America. The Israeli government is an oppressive, racist government, just like the American government, and that's why we support them. After Israel bombed Palestine, Joe Biden didn't even mention the Palestinians in his speech. Take a look at this video.
On Israel, sir, your thoughts on Israel?
Are you concerned about the violence in the Middle East, and can you talk about what conversations you have had with officials there?
My national security staff and defense staff has been in constant contact with their counterparts in the Middle East, not just with the Israelis, but also with everyone from the Egyptians to the Saudis to the Emiratis, etc. And I had a conversation with Bibi Netanyahu not too long ago. I'll be putting out a statement very shortly on that. My expectation and hope is that this will be closing down sooner than later. But Israel has a right to defend itself when you have thousands of rockets flying into your territory. But I had a conversation for a while with the Prime Minister of Israel, and I think that my hope is that we'll see this coming to conclusion sooner than later. Thank you.
And I also want to make this very clear. It's not just the Israeli government that's terrible. it's the people.
I don't think there's any answer to it.
Really?
There's only one way. Like, I would carpet bomb them.
You would carpet bomb them?
It's the only way you could deal with it. Like, or try to stop them a different way. It never worked.
You mean all Arabs or Gaza or?
I believe that they, like, I hope to believe they're not, but I do think they are, because I don't trust them. You can't trust them, and that's the only way I believe that. The only way is just to stop it completely.
I think we should give them a country. If you're doing any problem, you just go in there to give them a country, and then it's going to be a war between countries, you know? If they're going to throw rockets, we're going to throw one big one and done. I think also that every Arab that doing a terrorism attack, we have to kill him, and not because he's an Arab, because he's a terrorist. I think you should also kick out the family, because it all begins with chinuch. How you say it?
Education.
Whatever they teach the kids does, you know, it's families.
I'm think that we need to, איך אומרים להעיף את הערבים?
יש לך משהו להגיד, אומרת
על מה?
גם ככה ערבים, מקסימום.
אוקיי, בסדר בעברית? פשוט מאוד, צריך להיכנס לשטחים, וכל מחבל שעושה פיגוע צריך להרוג אותו, צריך להרוג את המחבלים, ואז הם יפחדו ולא יעשו לנו בעיות, והכל יהיה בסדר. הם יהיו בכפרים שלהם, אנחנו נחיה פה, לא צריך להיות ביחד, והכל בסדר.
You can't deal with these people. There's no need to try. There's no need to talk to them. What we can do is when they do enough harm, we retaliate. That's war, and that's the situation that any Jew who lives in Israel has to deal with.
I think Israelis have to take over, and they have to kick them away. It will be much better not to kill them, just to go back to Arab countries. They think they all have to be Islam. If you're not Islam, they will kill you.
A lot of Americans don't really understand what Israel's like. We hear a lot of things in the news. A lot of people are sympathizing with the Palestinian plight. Can you talk about what it's like to kind of live in this situation?
First of all, it's very hard. I'm in an organization. It's called Lahava. It's against the Jews shouldn't marry Arabs.
Did you say the organization did what again?
The organization is, the thing of it is that Jews shouldn't marry Arabs.
Shouldn't marry Arabs.
Yeah.
Why do you feel strongly about that?
Because Jews is a special nation that God gave it to the Jews, and we don't want Jews to get mixed up together with a different nation.
They're not, all they want is their country back.
Well, that's not gonna happen, I'm sorry.
So you're telling me that innocent children deserve to die?
Yes, because they're, in the future, are terrorists and hateful towards Israel.
Okay, yeah.
So I rather stop them living now before they grow and have a weapon. It's simpler.
Oh, okay, so killing kids is like, so if you had the choice, go into hospitals where kids are born and kill them.
Everyone, till the last, all Gaza needs to be flat. No one there.
No one there.
So I bet I'm going to be called anti-Semitic for this. Just like white people like to call me racist or Russian for pointing out the racism of the Democratic Party. Yes, the Republican Party is clearly racist and overtly racist, but the Democratic Party is covertly racist. And I'm probably going to get called anti-Semitic, despite showing video evidence of many Jewish people in Israel being absolute bigots towards Palestinians. But I don't give a damn. So that's all I gotta say for this video. If you like the content, like and subscribe to the channel, turn on the post notification. You know I post videos in the future, because YouTube will not show you my videos unless you do so. But I gotta leave you with one more thing before the video is over, and that's the word of the day. The word of the day for today is oppressive. Oppressive is spelled OPPRESSIVE. The definition of oppressive is unjustly inflicting hardships and constraint, especially on a minority or other subordinate groups. So now I'll attempt to use oppressive in a sentence. The Israeli and American government are extremely racist and oppressive governments. Hopefully I use that sentence correctly. So again, if you like the content, like and subscribe to the channel, turn on the post notification, know I post videos in the future, and use oppressive in the comment section below in the sentence so you know you watch the video to the end. One other thing, well, two other things. I have a Patreon account now, so if you want to donate to my Patreon is www.patreon.com/keep it100dre. You can donate anywhere between $3 to $10 a month. It helps me out massively, and it's going to help me create a much better viewing experience for you. So anything that you're able to donate, if you can, would be very much appreciated. If you can't, it's fine. I still love you either way. Just subscribe to the channel. Oh, and watch my George Floyd documentary. The George Floyd documentary covers the system that allowed George Floyd to be murdered, how much progress we made so far, if any, and how far we actually have to go before justice is achieved. So I would really appreciate if you watch that documentary. I put my heart and soul into that. So, and it's a great documentary. You would not regret watching it. I absolutely promise you that. It's the best video I've made by far. So if you like any other video that I've made, you will love this one. It's going to really blow your mind, the amount of information that's in there. So, anything else? No, that's all I gotta say for this video. I appreciate y'all watching. 100%. Peace.
Well, I've been stacking up. Nah, really that ain't accurate, cause I just spent my whole damn advance in the past couple months just to compensate for times we ain't have enough. Ooh.